to tonight, January 20th, 2021's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Town of Holliston. I'll call the meeting to order, and I would like to read the following statement into the record. Pursuant to the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 38, paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated March 16th, 2020, the Zoning Board of Appeals will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town's website within 24 hours in accordance with the governor's emergency action requirement of keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I would ask that all participants remotely attending this meeting please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. At this time, a roll call attendance vote will be taken. John Love, here. Jay Peabody,
Here.
Mark Bush,
Present. Sorry about that.
Elizabeth Dembitzer.
Here.
Thank you all. And reminder, I don't see anybody on the phone, so I guess I'll wait. But if you see anybody come in on phone, if people remind me, I'll give them the directions. So thank you all. Let's start. I think the first thing is the approval of the minutes for, wait a minute, was it the first thing?
The only thing I saw, John, was in item 5. It says William Rodenheiser, 213 Washington Street. That should be 213 Central Street on the header.
Okay. Are there any other comments on the minutes?
No.
No.
Okay. If that's the case, we'll accept the motion to approve the minutes.
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the zoning Board of Appeals meeting dated January 13th, 2021, with the address change for the Rodenheiser variance and special permit request as drafted.
Second?
Second.
All right, we both second it. You can have them all tonight, Liz.
Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended by Mark's comments, say aye. Everything will be by roll call. John, aye. Jay?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Liz?
Hi.
Motion carries, minutes are accepted. The next item is our budget request. I don't know, has everyone had an opportunity to take a look? It's pretty straightforward, and we've been budgeted basically level from last year, with the exception of a couple of categories that have gone into a centralized town fund for professional services and office supplies.
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah, I was fine with it too.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. So, I don't know, Karen, do we need to approve these, or as a, I guess we
Yes.
can, let's do that.
Yep.
We could have a motion to approve the budget as,
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented for fiscal year 2022.
I'll second it.
moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor, John, aye. Jay,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Liz.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries, and we'll present that to the selectmen. And I think the last item was the continuation, or the we never completed deliberations for the comprehensive, I'm sorry, not comprehensive permit, the public, the variance request and the special permit request for the Rodenheiser case. So let's open up that discussion. And I think we were planning to draft something ahead of time to respond to, but realized that there, other than the dimensional requirements, there wasn't a lot of conditions that we had discussed to put in there, so held off on that. Are there thoughts on?
Well, I mean, I guess does anyone else have anything to say? I have something to say about conditions.
Sure.
So since, a special permit should only be issued for uses which are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance or bylaw. Basically, I believe that you granted the original relief with the understanding that the structure as a family structure would, be greatly improved, because it is greatly improved, all the work he's done on it. But it does not, from the pictures I showed you, fit in with the neighborhood, because it's been as a construction zone for over 8 years, with construction vehicles, commercial equipment, and construction materials all over the outside of the building. And so, I mean, and obviously I would want your opinions on this, but I think that in order to kind of, help the applicant, fit into the community, into the neighborhood better, I would propose some types of conditions, like no overnight storage of construction vehicles, or commercial vehicles, except for maybe his personal truck or whatever, but no overnight, no storage on the property of construction or commercial equipment, because there's all that stuff over it. And no, moving forward, no storing of construction materials, either, because we have big bags of rocks and just stuff all over. Anyway, that's my thought. I know that, it reminds me a little of the storage of other vehicles and stuff that were on the areas on Lowland Street, but this still, I don't know, I showed you the pictures. You could see what it looks like there, and it's clearly understandable if it's 5 months of making this building, much better, but it's 8 years. And I think that at this point, it should fit into the community better.
What was I have to pull out the list. How is that zone?
I should know.
Excuse me.
Isn't it like
Residential. R1.
Okay. Yeah, and it's my understanding, at least from the last time we dealt with this, that the construction vehicles parked there were associated with the owner's business, right?
Yeah, I think he mentioned at the time that it was relative to the project, but I don't know, it seems to me that a lot of this stuff might be maybe relative to his business, not necessarily the project. I think that's probably what Liz is talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're two different issues. I agree. So Liz, what is your proposal for a condition then?
One would be, I guess, this is hard. I mean, obviously I don't want to interfere with the work he actually needs to get done,
Right.
you know, and is getting done so clearly, but I just don't believe that that's the case. And so no storage of construction equipment or vehicles or materials on the property unless, you know, they're involved in, you know, the work, you know, unless they're involved in renovation work that's taking place on the property currently, something like that. Does that,
Right.
I mean, you know, it's his private property, so I don't know if I can say, you know, you can't store your stuff, all your stuff there, but it seems some stuff you could limit. I don't. Right, I mean, I'm assuming when it was permitted, I didn't go back, and I should have, I guess, you know, gone back and looked, and when he was granted permission to continue it as a 4-family and that, and have a giant parking lot there. I didn't see if there were conditions then put on, but it appeared, I mean, given what's there, it appears not. I mean, really, you'd have to feel, yeah. I mean, Jay, do you think it's appropriate to condition it in some way for storage, or construction storage? I just,
Yeah, I think we can condition it on, I mean, it's supposed to be reasonable, so.
Yeah.
We feel like some of the stuff's there less on a construction basis, more on a permanent basis. I think we have all the right in the world to condition it. So I would say, you know, maybe prior to, so in this case, I mean, they need an issuance of the building permit. So no, I mean, sorry, the occupancy permit.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah, occupancy.
I believe he has temporary occupancy currently,
I didn't mean that.
at least of some of the units.
Yeah, so I guess you could put in there, you know, put in there something like for the zoning enforcement officer to confirm that all commercial vehicles are from the property prior to issuance of a occupancy certificate or the remaining occupancy certificates. You can certainly put it in there, and that'll get the stuff off.
yeah, I mean, I'm nervous because, I mean, I think if he just has a commercial vehicle as his, as his personal vehicle he drives around, I don't want to, you know, but I just say all that aren't, well, it's really it's a lot of it's commercial vehicles, but it's also the construction equipment. There's big like trailers and lights and stuff around there. I don't know what that stuff is, but you know. I'm just trying, how would we word it so someone could have their personal vehicle, but not a lot of excess vehicles?
You just talk, you can just say, you know, that will condition that the issuance of the occupancy certificate be upon the zoning enforcement officer's, you know, approval that no non-allowed commercial vehicles or equipment is located on the property.
yeah, I don't know if I'd even make it that, because that doesn't help you going forward once they have it. Maybe it's just forget about associating with that. That would be a condition, just that
We
no
can enforce,
construction equipment shall be stored other than that used in work on the property shall be stored.
so here's what I'm wondering, or what I'm thinking is, so we can control, we can at least help control what we know today, what he does in the future. I don't think we can we're not going to, once he has occupancy, he's going to have his tenants. We're not going to enforce it and fine him, but the town could, right? The town could always tell him to get your commercial stuff off your residential lot, but that's not, I don't think, on us. I think our job would maybe be to get it cleaned up before we give something back to the applicant, because we know it's a problem. It's about as far as I would go with it. And I think you're doing it reasonably and in line with the relief that's being sought. You just don't want to condition the lot with something that's unreasonable or outside of the scope of our jurisdiction. And right now, we're being asked to grant a special permit in a dimensional variance.
Mhm.
So I think it's a little dicey to say something like specifically no commercial vehicles in the future. I think we have that subject to all, rules and regulations in the town of Holliston, and they can enforce that.
What are the rules and regulations? Well, I guess I should know this, but I don't. The rules and regulations regarding parking of equipment in the residential district. I mean, commercial vehicles, we allow, like, plenty of people have their commercial truck or van or.
Maybe Karen can tell us, but I don't think an excavator
Yeah, like,
on a permanent basis, or trailers and staging and lighting. And I don't think that's probably within the village zoning district or that corridor of town in terms of aesthetic, but I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. What, am I right or wrong, Karen?
I think it's, oh, go ahead, Karen.
I don't think it's really a customary home occupation, if that's what you're asking.
yeah, that's all I think. So
Yeah.
it's probably not allowed in general, but I don't know the specific requirements relative to.
Well, I think if we condition and try to clean it up to a residential zoning district, and we're trying to say,
Mhm.
in keeping with the bylaw, that's a residential zoning district, and in keeping with the bylaw means it's not a bunch of equipment sprawled out everywhere, or it's
Yeah.
not an active construction site. What permit is opened, we hope is closed, buttoned up in the normal course. So I'm very comfortable with a condition like that. I just wouldn't want to overreach.
Yeah, I am too. I think it, and that's, I would point it at the construction equipment rather than just commercial vehicles, because that's a broader category.
Yeah.
Would start to be unfair, but I think that's really what we don't, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it covers it because it gets into storage of commercial equipment and vehicles. So if we just reference the bylaw, I think there's pressure there.
Yeah.
Okay, any other conditions that you think are appropriate here? We can reference the specific dimensional requests that were in the application, which would be to the is that the north side lot line, and there's two front lots, so I guess we reference the street names. Anything else?
And finish it by June 1st. Kidding.
Okay, we actually have two separate requests, so we have to deal with them. First would be the special permit, which, look at my, let's see, does anybody want to make up a motion for the special permit? We'll deal with that and then we'll go to the variance. Special permit, as I recall, was the part along the street, right?
Along Franklin, yeah.
Yep, Franklin Street.
So yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion to because I think Jay wanted to sit back on this one.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh,
Make a motion to approve the application for a grant of a special permit by William Rodenheiser at 213 Central Street for the extension of the exterior wall running parallel to Franklin Street.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. And that's, do we put the conditions on that one or on the variance?
Both, I think.
Okay, let's put it, so it's subject to the conditions that we spoke about, as well as the need to file it and our standard conditions in that respect. Anything else?
I would just reference the new plan by,
Yes,
hold on, let me get to that, by Grady Engineering, I think it is. Grady Consulting, dated one revised 12/22/20, and then there's a reference to the pool on 1/12/21, just to make sure that it's that plan.
mhm. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify through the roll call. John, aye. Jay,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Liz.
Aye.
If the motion carries, we'll grant special permit. Now on the variance, Mark, going to make another motion.
Can I just,
Sure.
Oh,
Go
sure.
ahead.
can I just quickly interject? I was just looking at the December 2015 decision. So condition number 2 of that prior decision referenced the prior record plan and had the distances to Franklin Street for the bulkhead. So you probably want to call out that prior condition and reconstruct
Restate it.
with this language. Yep. That condition also has the 0 lot line setback for the pool in it.
That's right.
That's for the
That's the
variance.
variance you're talking about.
Variance.
So yeah, so the variance, I think we have to be pretty specific with the numbers anyway.
I think that's why he added the pool. He presumed you were going to do that.
Yeah, so we've actually, the new plan is a half a foot instead of a 0 setback.
Could you read the actual condition from the old one, Karen? Maybe we can.
Construction shall be substantially in compliance with the plan of record per the special permit granted by the board on November 18th, 2015. The bulkhead shall be constructed no closer than 8.3 feet to Franklin Street and shall encroach no further than 21.7 feet into the required minimum front yard setback. The addition shall be located no closer than 27 feet to Franklin Street and shall encroach no further than 3 feet into the required minimum front yard setback. The proposed pool, walkway, and appurtenant equipment shall be allowed to be located as shown on the plan to within 0 feet of the lot line and to within 30 feet of Central Street.
Okay, so really none of that changed. The part that
None.
changed was the actual building on that side by the pool, right? Is now closer by a foot or two, as I recall. No, I have to pull that up.
Sorry, Karen, you were muted. Was there something else there? Oh, she got her cat.
You're muted.
Sorry about that.
We don't mind the occasional meow. It's cool.
Not at all.
Yeah. Sorry, so yeah, now you have the bulkhead is 11 feet. And you also have the stairs on the western side lot line, which is sort of the rear of the structure.
Yeah, but
I think it's the stairs are the ones that, because the the bulkhead is actually smaller.
Yeah,
just a
it's
different
favorable. It's favorable to
design,
our
so-
last
So I think
ruling.
referencing the plans took care of that, but the stairs, I think we should dimension. Right? Because we allow
Yeah.
pool construction to the line, but not otherwise building construction. So maybe a condition that building construction stairs on that's the
West side.
west side shall be no closer than whatever that.
18.1.
But you might want to reference the bulkhead because it's not really a bulkhead. It's like a little entry. It's like part of the building now because they built up a little doorway around it.
Okay.
So I think
All
that's
right.
why I
Good
came
point.
back.
Good point. Yep. All right. So a condition that so on the west side, and what was the dimension, Karen, for that stairs?
18.1.
Okay, should be no closer than that. The second condition that the, what do we call it, stair enclosure or entry enclosure on the east side shall be no closer than whatever the appropriate
So 11 feet.
to Franklin Street lot line.
Both of those elements are already constructed.
Yes,
So this is more or less an as-built plan.
correct. Okay.
It's it's ironic.
And we want the condition about the parking in there. I'm sorry, Jay, I interrupted you.
No, he said it's ironic you're saying per the as-built because usually it's a permit to do something, but
Yes, well, that was what we expressed to them last.
We have seen this before.
Yeah. Now, at least in this case, the deviations were at least in the spirit of what we had told them they could do. If not-
Well, and I also think that there was like, if they had come, there clearly was a hardship based on the granting of the other variances. It's not just an inconvenience, it was a hardship.
Yes, no, I think we were okay with that before, and that hasn't changed. It's just the dimensions. Okay, any other conditions that you see?
Just should we reference the old plans otherwise in conformance with the prior ruling? Or did we already say we're doing that?
Yeah, I would put that in the finding, but I could also put in a condition. The only other thing is there is a third condition on that 2015 variance, so I don't know if you want to repeat it. It's regarding the fencing at least 20 feet from Central Street in order to minimize the sightline impacts from Franklin Street and Central Street intersection.
Yeah, that should remain. I thought if we just restated it, that would be in there.
To repeat that, or is that still in effect?
You might want to in case
Okay.
somebody's.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'd rather say it twice than.
Yeah, that was just so people coming off Franklin Street wouldn't get T-boned because they couldn't see.
Right.
Yep. That was one of the more important elements of that decision, as I recall. Okay. Any other conditions? All right, thank you. So,
you just want to take a motion practice.
Mark, I don't think we made the motion, right?
Yeah, hold on a sec. So this is for the dimensional variance. Attorney Dembitzer, do you want to take this one?
I don't have,
No, I'll do it.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to grant the application of a dimensional variance as applied for by William Rodenheiser to 13 Central Street. For the west setback. I guess we can go into the conditions. So I'll just make a motion to accept the special permit application as written.
I think that's the variance we want.
Variance.
Right.
Whoop, sorry, did I do
This
that? Did I
is-
read the wrong one? I just read the wrong one. Yeah. Variance
With the conditions.
with the conditions,
Noted.
yeah. Dimensional variance, there it is. I opened the wrong one.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? John, aye. Jay,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Liz,
I,
thank you. And thanks for the ideas and the thoughts on that. I think it'll make it clear to them. What to do. So, moving on. Our next item is the continuation of the comprehensive permit hearing for 80 Indian Ridge Road. So let's see where we are. I think since we met last week, we've had some further iterations on the draft findings and decision, and I think this is probably a good time to go through them. Paul, I think you feel you're pretty well there, right? You and Mr. Harrison
Sure.
back and forth.
I think we are very close.
Mhm.
Maybe a couple conditions that we need to discuss tonight. But we're
Okay.
pretty well there.
I wonder, does it make sense to go through this? Maybe it's quickly on this, in that we went through it in some detail a couple meetings ago, but for those areas where we've had some changes or discussion, to highlight those.
And I've left the changes tracked for issues that had been discussed, but you guys haven't seen the changes yet at the last meeting. So we can go through those and you can let me know if they cover, the issues the way you wanted them to be covered. There are a couple of additional conditions that are in there that may not have been discussed at the past hearing. So everything's tracked and we can go over it.
Okay, that'd be terrific. I think that'd be a good start, because I then take a look where they're I don't know, before we do the Karen, were there anything else that we got back from any of the other boards? I think we got most everything with the exception of maybe the select board. I didn't see anything else. Okay. Well, maybe if you could share your screen. Oh, before we do it, I see somebody has come on by phone. Just want to remind you, if you would like to raise your hand, *9 is the way to do it. And when you get recognized, *6 will unmute you. So I will let that, but yeah, maybe if you could share your screen, Paul, we could take a look at those.
I will do that. I just want to make sure that I'm
You get the right one.
correct version.
Okay.
So let me shut this one up. Right, so, as you can see, I put the decision date of tonight, but that presupposes that you'll finish tonight. And again, in number 2, I've changed the final hearing date to tonight's date. Sorry, I'm going to try to change my view here. It's getting in the way. Oh, that's a little better. Okay. All right, so on number 18, we got this missing information from the applicant. So the total impervious area is 18.5%
Mhm.
of the site. All right, for A6, we had a discussion at the last meeting with regards to the board wanting to see a copy of the affordable unit location plan. So I've added that language in A6. A13, I've corrected this condition so that it reflects the fact that the applicant is in fact intending for the sidewalks, driveways, roads, drainage systems all to become public. I did take out utilities and then added with the exception of the proposed septic system. And then it says that are intended to be offered for acceptance as public ways. So this is to make sure that we're clear that the proposed septic system is not going to become public and it will be required to be maintained by the applicant.
Paul, could I ask you a question? It's
Sure.
just as curiosity, when I was just seeing right on, let me try and find it here, the affordability.
What number are we on?
I guess it's just B1, and this is kind of a question, or maybe it's B4. What happens with the affordable units once they are sold as affordable? They still maintain that. How do you, what's the mechanism for them being maintained, or how do they sell thereafter and stuff? I just don't know it. You could educate me.
Sure. Well, I think somehow I've lost my shared screen somehow.
Yeah, I can't remember which. I saw it when I was reading and meant to ask you this. Maybe Mr. Harrison does.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
guess it's B2. It says upon completion in perpetuity, 6 of the project's 24 units shall meet the criteria for inclusion in the subsidized housing inventory. So how does that typically work? I mean, if somebody buys it that's qualified, and they want to sell it in a few years.
Yes.
Did we lose Paul or just Paul's screen?
I
Did
think
you
it's,
lose my screen?
yeah, we can see about a half inch down the
Just
middle.
a narrow strip.
A little
Can't read
too-
anything.
All right, hold on. I'm going to stop sharing and then reshare it.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I can adjust that a little bit.
thank you.
As part of the final approval through Mass Housing, they will designate a monitoring agent. So once the units have been sold initially, any resale, the applicant, there will be a deed restriction, obviously, on the units when they're sold. And after that, it would be clear that if they want to sell their units and it's an affordable units, they have to contact the monitoring agent for Mass Housing. And then Mass Housing will walk them through the process of how to market it and sell it to another affordable buyer.
I see, and they're restricted in what they can charge by what the current definitions are.
Yes,
Okay, I figured it was something like that, but I just didn't know.
yes. And the town's supposed to be notified too. I think it's important that when the town is notified, that they make sure that they stay in the process, so they understand those units remain affordable.
Mhm.
There are some abilities for the town to acquire a property if it does not, if they cannot find a seller. But, given the location of this development in Holliston, I don't see that being a problem to find buy an affordable unit. So
Thank you.
no problem. We will provide also as a requirement, we will have to provide a copy of all our final approval documents, which includes the monitoring agreement and
Thank
the
you.
other agreements with the state.
Well, that was as much for my own education as anything else. So I appreciate it.
You thinking of buying one? I mean, just.
No,
Okay.
I not, but we have done a bunch of these to restrict the first sale. I just didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
I figured it was regulated. I'm sorry, God. Looks like you're back in action, Paul.
Okay, so we've cleared through the affordability section. On page 8, C1B, I eliminated the if necessary.
Mhm.
Subsection E. This language had to do with the construction, the extension of Indian Ridge Road South. So,
You're
Commissioner,
sort of fading in and out, at least to me. I don't know if others are getting.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So we're moving down to subsection E here. Submit to building commissioner a construction sequencing and mitigation plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then the language was added, the applicant shall also provide to the building commissioner and the Indian Ridge South abutters a detailed staging plan and timeline for the construction of the access to the property from Indian Ridge Road South prior to the commencement of construction. So that addresses the discussion that we had.
You're right.
last week.
Should that also be I think there's probably only one, but the Indian Ridge North abutter, that where the woman whose home abuts the leaching field or the
Does the extension of the Indian Ridge Road South impact her property?
well, there is an abutter that I believe is on Indian Ridge North that probably is also interested in the because I mean, maybe we just limit that to abutters or.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of this provision was to address the impacts to the Indian Ridge South abutters.
Oh, okay.
From
Yeah.
the extension of that portion of the roadway.
Okay. Shall we put I mean, do we need something for the construction sequencing for the rest of the project for any other?
That's up the beginning of this section.
Okay, thank you.
Submit to the building commissioner a construction sequencing and mitigation plan. But then this down here, the applicant shall also provide the building commissioner and the Indian Ridge South abutters a detailed staging plan, timeline for the construction of the access to the property from Indian Ridge Road South prior to the commencement of construction. So that's just dealing with the construction.
Right, the access.
Yep.
Okay, right, stuff we talked about last week.
Yeah. All right. 10, we discussed this last time, on-site lighting on the site that conforms to the town bylaw. Lighting shall be downlit / shielded to prevent light spillover onto surrounding properties, and then no street lights are proposed.
Okay.
We add the language that no site grading, roadway, and utility improvements shall be conducted on weekends or state or federal holidays. In 23, we added, to the extent that earth removal or input of fill is necessary, the applicant shall prepare an earth removal plan / fill plan showing all necessary custom fills and describing the number of truck trips necessary for the earth removal. Such earth removal / fill plan shall be submitted
Okay.
to the board with final plans for review and administration.
We're not hearing you again, Paul, I'm afraid.
It should be submitted to the board for review and administrative approval.
Okay.
Sorry, you're taxing my capabilities, my technological capabilities.
Gotcha.
You do this on the shared screen.
Yeah, I've been there.
E25, all lot corners shall be delineated with capped iron pins was added to the F2, and this is where some conversation needs to occur. So it states the applicant has agreed to contribute the amount of $15,000 to the installation of such signage and mitigation, but that's not correct, right, Dean?
Yes, let me explain. The applicant has agreed to, as part of the construction, pay for all site mitigation directly as part of the construction.
So as originally drafted, the applicant will be responsible for the cost of such signage is correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, F9, I don't know what happened to F8. I'll have to renumber this. F9, the applicant shall add a note to the final plan stating all signs and pavement markings to be installed within the project site shall conform to the applicable specifications of the manual on uniform traffic control devices. And then F10 was added. Site triangle should be shown on the final plans for the internal roadway intersection within the project site. And a note shall be added stating signs, landscaping, and other features located within site triangle areas shall be designated, installed, and maintained so as not to exceed 2.5 feet in height. No windrows located within site triangle areas that exceed 3.5 feet in height or that would otherwise inhibit sight lines shall be promptly removed.
You have an extra R in Windows.
Excuse me?
Paul, can you go back up to, I don't know if it got renumbered, but the sidewalk section? On number 5F.
Yep.
This is where we're making the $15,000 contribution.
Okay.
The applicant shall provide a $15,000 contribution. And you can reference the letter or. Yeah. Yeah.
Acceptable, the applicant shall provide the town a contribution in the amount of 15,000 towards the cost of such extension of the proposed sidewalk.
Correct.
Board members, is that okay with you?
Yeah, what's the timing of that? Should we put a,
Yeah, I submitted a letter that goes along with this, which is a little bit more detail. What we're offering to do is that the trust will make a $1,000 payment upon the sale of the first 15 market rate homes. However, the full payment will be made no later than 24 months from the issuance of the first building permit.
And Dean, just a clarification, I think I understood, but the $1,000 was per unit as they sold,
Yes, the first
For
15.
market rate unit.
which gets you to the 15. Gotcha. It just
Yep.
wasn't a single payment, but.
And I think Karen had suggested that she would prefer this to be an upfront payment rather than.
yeah, I was just going to
basically-
add, that's just an accounting hassle to just keep track of that. So I'm for that. Just pay it up front after the sale of the first unit.
After the sale of the first market unit.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I mean, it's 15 grand.
Yeah. Yep, that's fine. No, that's fine. I understand. Yeah, yeah, it could be,
For both sides. Yeah.
we don't want to, yeah, drive the accountants crazy.
Payable after the sale of the first unit.
Yes. We'd like to have I'll change the letter,
Mhm.
but the applicant is requesting that if the funds have not been used for the purposes noted above and as listed in the decision by the 5th anniversary date of the 15,000, the balance of the funds should be returned to the trust. He's concerned that it would get turned over for purposes other than the intention. We had outlined that in our letter, but we could add that here if the board agrees to it.
In principle, I get it. I think we probably should confirm with the select board and all that, whether that timing is reasonable, but I don't have an objection to the concept.
Well, I don't want to hold up the process. Can we put something, if any repayment terms, I'm trying to leave it up to, as part of our final approval, work with the board of selectmen or yourselves to figure out what's appropriate. The applicant has, raised concerns that he just doesn't want this to go into the general fund after a certain amount of time. The intent was to make the improvements. Does the town have a trust, affordable trust fund or anything like that?
We have a commission. I don't know whether there's a
There,
fund.
there is a housing trust.
We could just add that if the funds are not used for the sidewalk, not used for the intended purpose, any remaining funds will be turned over to the Affordable Housing Trust.
That is quite generous. Thank you.
I'll see if I get a call in a few minutes, Karen.
Too late, Dean. It's on paper now. Or-
Excuse me. Oh, there's go my ringer. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah, I like that too. I feel good about that.
Yeah, I agree. That's nice.
The
That
whole
look good?
intent is to
Yep.
deal with the issue that we've talked about.
Yep.
a lot.
It
So,
doesn't become political this way.
yep,
That's the intended use. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, moving on, F12 addresses the surety. The applicant shall provide surety for the completion of project infrastructure consistent with general laws, chapter 41, section 81U. The surety shall be kept in place and shall be automatically renewable until such time as construction of the aforesaid driveway and related infrastructure is completed and funds are released. The bond amount shall be calculated using the standard methodology established by the Holliston Planning Board for subdivisions and shall include the common septic system components. And then F13, I actually just added shortly before we started the meeting. The applicant shall use granite curbing for all of the catch basins and at all intersection roundings with appropriate transition curbing between sections of the Cape Cod berm. So this is the language from the peer review letter that I looked for previously and didn't find. But this will be cross-referenced with the waiver decision later on, having to do with the waiver request for the vertical granite curbing.
Mhm.
So this will reference back to this section to note that this vertical granite curbing will be required at all catch basins and intersection roundings.
Can I just ask a quick question, Paul, about F12? So does this operate similarly to the planning board? Does it need to come to the zoning board for approval? The bond amount itself? And are there interim steps allowed as there are with the planning board where there's a
Yeah,
bond review for reductions? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it needs to come to the board. I think it can be done through staff.
I'm sorry, what was the last part of what you said?
I think it can be done through staff.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say follow your normal procedure.
Normal would be board.
Well, then I would have it go back to the board.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Section G, I've added G3, G2, G3, and G4. So G2, during construction, adequate provisions shall be made to ensure safe turnaround of emergency vehicles. The applicant shall meet with the fire department to ensure that such safe turnaround is provided. G3, a base course of pavement shall be constructed around the entire loop roadway before building permits may issue for lot numbers 4 through 16 and 18 through 21. In G4, the applicant shall provide the board a phasing plan depicting the proposed phases of the development. Three, added consistent with the Holliston DPW Water Division's water rules and regulations as discussed.
Mhm.
4, the applicant shall submit a water system impact study report as part of the issuance of the connection permits for the project. The applicant shall be responsible for any applicable system development charge as set forth in the DPW Water Division's water rules and regulations. Again, that's deleted. That was just a placeholder. I1, just a clarification that the order of conditions has already been obtained and that a copy of it will be attached as Exhibit B.
And we don't need to repeat any of their conditions, right? They're
Nope.
binding
Their
no matter
conditions were all
what.
issued pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act.
Probably better off not
Yep.
potentially conflicting by.
Yeah, the only conditions that you would need to mention in your decision would be if they had suggested you impose conditions pursuant to the local wetlands bylaw.
Mhm.
I clarified in I2 that the waiver of the wetlands bylaw had been withdrawn. Six was added. The applicant shall follow the standards set forth by the Holliston Planning Board for the normal required milestone inspections for clearing and grubbing, drainage installation, water pipe installation, final subgrade, gravel base placement and compaction, bituminous binder course placements, catch basin inlets, curbing, bituminous wearing course, sidewalks in, I think that's supposed to say incidental. Items such as soil stabilization for slopes, shade trees, and landscaping, guardrails and survey bonds. Correcting.
The last word should be bounds, B-O-U-N-D-S.
Now entitled J8. Took out septic system from this section.
Mhm.
Proposed to be offered as public ways until such time the roads are accepted as public ways. The town shall not have any legal responsibility for the operation and maintenance of such. The homeowners association documents shall have provisions addressing the roads and the drainage systems until such time as the roadways are accepted as public ways, and shall provide for appropriate reserve for maintenance. The HOA condominium document shall also address the maintenance of the proposed septic system, which shall remain private, with the town having no obligation to maintain at any time. Dean, that's acceptable to you? Dean? There, Dean?
That's fine. I'm sorry. You cut out for a second. Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about this section?
Um, Yeah, I'm sorry, who?
I'm sorry, it's Bob Wollendrina. I was late. So this new section about the HOA condo association, being required, does this require them to accept the maintenance of this as a private system?
For the roadways and drainage?
No. Well, the septic system in particular.
The septic system that specifically states shall remain private, the town having no obligation to maintain at any time.
Yeah, but is this where we would specify what remain private means in terms of liability for abutters, if there's any downstream problems?
Well, the board does not have the authority to determine who has liability and who does not for any downstream problems resulting from failure of the septic system. That's outside of the board's jurisdiction. In fact, approval of the septic system is outside of the board's jurisdiction. That's a Title V issue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haverty.
Yeah, for one other question on this, where we talk about the HOA document shall also address maintenance of the proposed septic system. Are we able to also say and establish adequate reserves or something, or is that beyond our?
That's part of the Title V process.
Okay. That does good. That's what we were discussing early on in this process.
Yes.
9 is just numbering. Waivers. Number 18, I got the additional information I was looking for with regards to the requirement of Article 4, Section 5.2.1A. Number 21, you'll see under the board action, I cross-reference this back to condition F13. That's the condition that we discussed earlier. Lists the exceptions to the waiver of the vertical granite curbing requirement.
Mhm.
I think that might be it. Yep, that's it.
What's that?
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's start for the board. Are there any questions or comments regarding those conditions and findings that have been proposed?
And for me,
All right, I think we've explored all of the information that we needed to put that together. I think I'd like to take the time now to give people that they've now had a look at the fairly completed process and evolution of the plan that have been involved with this throughout to offer their thoughts. I know we've received a lot of them along the way, as well as a lot of very good questions, but I think I'd like one more opportunity for the board to hear the thoughts of the citizens and the particularly the abutters to the project. So we would open the floor. Here's a question. How much advance notice will Indian Ridge Road South abutters receive? Mr. Reddick, to what, how much notice of what?
This was from Lindy Gregorio.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn.
Sorry, 51 Indian Ridge Road South. Advance notice of construction or any changes on the property.
Well, we put in, if this goes as it's been drafted so far, there is a obligation to present a phasing plan and whatnot ahead of time. I don't know if we put a specific advance notice, but
Yeah, I didn't see a number. So typically it would be 30 days, 60 days, something like that. We would expect advance notice.
good thought. But the plan would, I'm guessing, would be even more than that. But I don't know. Is a any if
I'm
we
gonna
put
go
30
through that.
days into that, would that make sense? To that,
I'm just looking at that condition. That condition.
The applicant's required to submit final plans, and the board has 45 days to review those final plans. So that would be the first opportunity for the neighbors to have notice that the applicant is close to commencing construction.
So the abutters would receive notice 45 days in advance, or the board?
The board would receive a copy of the final plan.
But the condition is that the board and the abutters receive the plans, so I presume that,
So but that's a different plan. So that's the construction mitigation process. So we can add to section C1, I think it's E.
So as an abutter, a direct abutter to this property, I would expect at least 30 days minimum.
We'll give the same, Paul, I'll give the same 45 days. I don't want to make it confusing. I'd
Yeah.
rather be consistent.
Right, so you would then, so what your plan would be, Dan, would to submit the construction sequencing and mitigation plan and the detailed staging plan timeline at the same time you submit final plans?
Correct.
okay,
Correct.
I think that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good catch. So in any case, I would like to give people an opportunity to give your thoughts on this. In the interest of time and due to the fact that we've heard this, I'd like to limit people to 3 minutes. If that becomes a problem, we can do it, but just in order to keep this going, and would encourage you to, particularly bring any new thoughts or concerns, or to reiterate those that have been there, but recognizing that as I look at the names here, we've been much the same group for the last 8 months. So at this point, anybody that would like to be heard relative to this project, again, please take the opportunity to address the board.
I actually have another question.
Oh, sure.
I was just looking at the provision about blasting, and I just wanted to check, as part of the state regulations, is it a requirement that the abutters are notified of dates of blasting and so forth? I don't see that in the language of this proposal.
Are you saying that the state requires notification to abutters?
Well, I just want to make sure one way or another there is a mechanism in place for abutters to be notified in the event of blasting.
I'm not quite sure what the state requirement is. Generally, there is notification to abutters. My experience is that there would be a sign up where abutters can affirmatively add their names to a contact list prior to blasting occurring.
There is a specific state process that would have to go through for any blasting. And it usually also involves the local fire department. Any blasting, there is requirements to do a front end survey for a specific radius of the blasting area. And so, as with any comprehensive permit or any permit, in that case, we have to follow state laws, just like we have to follow the building code. So if blasting is required, if you're a butter within that blasting zone, you will be notified.
Thank
So,
you.
Judy, just understand, as Dean is qualifying, that it's not an abutter as in a butter to the property. It's an abutter to the actual blast site within the property. It's a measured distance.
I think it's 300 feet.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's 250. I'm looking at 527 CMR 13 .09 1. It does specify 250 feet from the center of the blast site.
250. Okay.
Yeah. But as long as the intention is to comply with this section of the code.
They're required to comply with the state requirements for blasting.
I would think the state would get antsy if you didn't comply when it
Yeah.
came to
I'm just
explosives.
wondering,
As with the fire department.
Yeah.
right, does our fire department have any typical standards for, they just follow the state requirements? Okay.
Yeah, most fire departments follow the state regulations.
Yeah, I didn't know whether they did anything further. Okay. Yes, I would open the floor to anyone that would like to either ask questions or speak. Tracy, it's yours.
Hi, I just had a question about going forward. If there was an issue of like last meeting, we had spoken about the times of construction and when it can begin and when it can end and certain days, or if there's the parking in front of driveways or any kind of issue like that based on when the construction begins. Like at that point, who do we contact if we're having a problem, like being the abutters on Indian Ridge Road South? Those are just two examples that I thought of, but it's like at that point, who do we contact saying that this is what's going on?
Building department, building inspector.
Yes.
Building inspector.
Right, so at that stage, this is like any other construction project.
Okay,
The first instance, any questions or concerns go to the building commission.
Right. He's our enforcement officer. And you are also always welcome to make us aware of it, and we will try to, but we don't do the enforcement. He does. Or she
okay.
does.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. You folks have surprised me. We've maybe heard it all at this point. This is a plug for many of you who have been so faithful to participating in this process. I'll let you know that the Zoning Board of Appeals has an opening. And if anybody has been inspired by your participation here to either improve it or participate in it, we would welcome your interest, and happy to tell you that this isn't the typical process we do, but we do get these as part of it, and we would welcome anybody that's got the kind of interest that a lot of the abutters to this project have shown. So my commercial's over. Sorry, I saw a question jump up there, but I didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah, I'll jump in again. This is Lindy Gregorio. Section 25 of the document states that the board acknowledges our abutters' concerns regarding traffic and parking and things like that. Specifically, what has been done to address the issues that we've brought up?
Well, specifically, we've tried to institute conditions to mitigate them to the extent that we are able, including there's the requirements to do the mitigation of the work in the cul-de-sac, those involving the drainage, some of the traffic recommendations that were there. There's the mitigation effort to create the sidewalk extension that the applicant has agreed to provide a contribution towards, and it'll be up to the town to come up with the difference. So I think that's this whole process that you folks have contributed. You've seen the plans change from those that were originally offered to now. We tried to implement them along the way to the extent that we have the authority to do so. So those were a few that come to my mind.
All right. I mean, specifically being right in the cul-de-sac of Indian Ridge Road South, I would ask and try to understand what's being done regarding parking. Just today, there were just 2 trucks down there looking at the property, and it fills up a good majority of the cul-de-sac. So once construction begins, is this property going to quickly make amends and try to figure out the parking, issues related to all of these trucks coming into our cul-de-sac, so that we can continue to exit our driveways properly, that we can continue to have services to the group home next door as needed, how is that going to be adjusted for?
I think there's a specific, I'm trying to think from the last thing, a specific condition about parking in that cul-de-sac after access to the site is available, because that was, yeah, I agree with you. That's something that can't be there.
E,
Where's, I'm trying to find that one.
C1E, Chairman.
B1E?
C1E.
C1E.
Sorry, thank you.
which states that the applicant shall also provide to the building commissioner and the Indian Ridge South abutters a detailed staging plan and timeline for the construction of the access to the property from Indian Ridge Road South prior to the commencement of construction. So this requires the applicant to submit a plan that shows how they're going to conduct the construction of the extension of Indian Ridge South without having a negative impact upon the neighboring properties.
Yeah, I thought we had one specifically that talked about parking in that cul-de-sac other than when the construction was happening of the access road.
It's probably in the traffic.
Well, that's part of the sequencing. Once we do that section, then we'll, sequence into the property itself. And obviously, as part of, I believe it was the paragraph that relates to, work times, dust mitigation and all that that's part of that whole process. No vehicle parking. I think that's.
Yeah, no vehicle parking on Indian Ridge Road South, period, wasn't there?
As of the start of construction, or when?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Yes, hold on. It was.
I don't think it's written anymore. I think the issue was that they acknowledged that they need to get into the site as soon as possible in that sequencing plan.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you changed the language.
My worry is that construction is going to start and it's just going to continue.
That's part of what we need to submit to the town prior to us, 45 days prior to the building commissioner. We need to submit that to the abutters in Indian Ridge South, along with the zoning board of appeals. And I would assume if there's anything in that report that is not acceptable to the town or the abutters, we will be told of. I mean, we could add, which includes parking. I have no problem adding that within that section. I mean, I understand that this is not, some of this terminology is not common for a lot of individuals. But in the construction, that's part of the sequencing and mitigation, and obviously like dust, maintaining dust runoff and so forth. But if we want to put, Paul, Chairman, if you want to add, in addressing parking mitigation during that phase of construction for the cul-de-sac and the road, that's fine with us. I mean, if it.
We could change that to state the applicant shall also provide to the building commissioner and the Indian Ridge South abutters a detailed staging and parking mitigation plan and timeline for the construction of the access to the property from Indian Ridge Road South prior to the commencement of construction.
I would appreciate if you did that as an abutter.
Yeah, I think that, and I actually would like to take it, if not, if we can't specifically put in, I thought we did have something that talked about parking during construction on Indian Ridge Road South after access to the site was provided, and I'd like to, move it onto the site as soon as feasible, which is part of that, but if we could specifically either require it or encourage
Put
it
that
as,
in the traffic conditions.
So,
What you want to say is that once the extension of Indian Ridge Road South has been completed, there shall be no parking on the.
It could happen even sooner. My guess is that they'll get their way into the site and work backwards on the improvements in between. There's simply not enough room for them to stage in the cul-de-sac.
right,
Agreed.
that's my point. That was our discussion last week.
yeah, that,
You really need to see the plan because it's likely that it'll just take them a couple of days to get in there. It'll
Right.
be very specific pieces of equipment that get them in there. They'll cut an area big enough to stage other equipment.
Right.
but it's, Paul's suggested language is acceptable to us, in case we're all not around while this starts, that's,
Mhm.
it's fine, that's acceptable.
Yeah, it's been one of the issues from day one that I thought we had a pretty good agreement.
Yep.
Make it-
Paul, wherever you think it's appropriate to add it,
Put it in as condition F13.
okay?
Extension of Indian Ridge Road South is completed. The applicant shall not park construction vehicles on Indian Ridge Road South.
That's fine. That's acceptable to us.
Okay. Yeah, that's been our biggest concerns from day one. And then to clean up the parking on there throughout. Okay, I guess going once, going twice.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. and Mrs. Paul have their hands up, I see.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Oh, yep, I'm sorry, it's up there. My apologies, please, the floor is yours.
No worries. Just a quick question. After the staging is set up on the inside of, outside of the cul-de-sac into the woods, when does the street actually become a street? I think I've asked this before, but concerning our front yard and Mark and Linda DiGregorio's front yard being, all set up with grass and all that curbing, when does that all happen? Is it once they're in there?
Well, that will be part of our sequencing plan.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to that detail, but that would be part of that. Once we're in the site, you mean basically removing the remaining area of the cul-de-sac and narrowing the road down.
Yeah.
That has not been defined yet, but that would be part of the whole sequencing plan that we've just been talking about.
Okay.
Pam, our guess was that that would probably be later in the project because until there's a loop that's completed in there, there's no ability to turn around equipment. So I think the fire and trash and everybody else would not want to see that happen until the loop is in existence so that stuff can turn around. So my guess is, and they'd have to have these conversations with those groups and then incorporate into that plan that they'll come in, build the road in to whatever extent is necessary, and then carry the construction to a point before you could do that, before you'd want to do that,
Okay.
as opposed to right up front, or then you look like a dead end.
Okay. Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, the reason why we're not trying to avoid it to put a specific
No.
date. You know, obviously, we don't know when we're gonna break ground and what time of year we'll break ground. So, you know, obviously, we'll have to take that into consideration, the period of duration to build a road. And does it fall in the middle of winter, you know, and so, and I know we didn't want to disrupt the drainage for that area. So we're not trying to just say, you know, we're just putting it off for another date. It's just that it's too early in the process, too early to know. That's why we want to have that, the board requested that we provide the information at a later date when we're closer to actually knowing how the construction is going to work.
okay, that makes sense.
No, thank you. Yep.
You don't have a question
No,
about
that's
that?
good. That's good.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Lindy Gregorio again. I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
One, so since we are a direct abutter, the plan is to extend our property once we make the cul-de-sac into a street. We have an irrigation system. What's happening with that? First question.
We can discuss that as part of the mitigation plan. I mean, if you, you know, I haven't been out and investigated, you know, I've been out to the site and we met with a few of you out there. But that's, like we said, I think at that point we can talk about it and, you know, make us aware that you do. So that's good to know and work through that. And once again, you know, the exact process and timing is just too early to tell. But we will obviously address your irrigation system if you have in there, you know, obviously mailboxes, you know, there's just some things that we do have to iron out.
Yeah.
But that's why we've offered to have a plan and the board expects us to have a plan.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. My second question is, I'm not sure if that's me echoing, but my second question is regarding the notice period. So we talked about a 45-day notice period for the abutters. How long will we then have to respond to that notice? So if there's any issues or questions that we have regarding that notice.
I guess,
I assume, go ahead.
I was gonna say, technically up to the day of, I guess, but presuming we're gonna need somebody to get involved, like the building inspector and all, the sooner the better. I don't think there's any statutory period or anything like that.
And will we be notified of the process? So if we have an issue or a question related to that notice or the plan, how do we provide that notice?
Well, if we notify you, most likely that we'll have contact information on the notice. What is usually done, we'll, you know, if as part of the notice, we'll intend to have some sort of place you could respond to in contact. You know, if there's enough interest, we could have a meeting. Just like, you know, we might have a meeting with the ZBA. They might want us to come in and explain something within the plans. So, you know, once again, I hate to keep saying it, but it's a little premature. But as notice, usually when you get notice, there is a way to get in touch with us.
Okay.
And the building inspector is our agent throughout all this, so he is always an avenue to, if you're not getting.
So to the extent you have a concern that's not addressed by the mitigation plan prepared by the applicant, I definitely recommend you bring it to the attention of the building commissioner so that he is aware of it before he signs off on that plan.
Okay. Thank you.
A question, I have to apologize for arriving late to this call, but did you, was there a discussion earlier on about what happens next regarding Title V approvals? If there was, I could follow up offline, unless somebody's got a really quick summary.
There wasn't a discussion before they're allowed to move forward on this project. They're going to have to go before the Board of Health and get a Title V approval. Like presume they have not obtained that as of yet.
We have not.
Okay. Mr. Harrison, do you know about when you'll be approaching the Board of Health for that, to start that process?
No, I don't. It's really up to the engineer when he's done with all his requirements. But I do not have a date now.
Okay. Is there, the obvious question then is, once a date is established, how does that get communicated to people?
I don't know that there is I'm not familiar with the Title V, and the Board of Health's process. I don't. Do you
There
know
is
that?
no public notice unless there's a variance requested.
So they deal with it. My guess then the best bet would be to let the Board of Health know of your interest and ask for their help, or the health agent maybe would be the better, was their representative.
Okay.
Because we also wouldn't typically get notice of that, so. But it's a public meeting, public process.
Just to
Okay.
correct you, John, it may not be a public meeting.
Oh,
Depending on the design, it may be that the agent is authorized to actually issue the permit.
okay. So he'd be the best person to get in touch with.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions or comments? Anything more from the board? Is there more information that you've?
I'm sorry, the Board of Health person, would that be Scott Moles? I'm looking at him as Health Director Agent
Yes.
on the website. Thank you.
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Nothing for me either. I do imagine that we probably are at a point where we could close the hearing. I don't think there's probably much more we need to address the decision, as edited. We haven't seen, we watched, Paul do it in real time tonight. I imagine that we'd want to see the markup and then, I guess either act on it or just confirm that the narrative is what we've talked about. So I'm not sure procedurally, you close the hearing, you decide, and then you fine tune the comp permit, because I think we have time to do that.
You have 40 days from the date that you close the public hearing to
Right.
render your decision.
Right. The issue in that case would be that there wouldn't be any input from Dean, but I don't necessarily think Dean, unless Dean, you can tell us otherwise, would you care about, small changes or consistency with dialogue? Are there any material deals or terms that you'd want us to hold a hearing open for, or closing a hearing, something the applicant would be willing to let us do?
What I've done in the past, or what I've been involved with in the past in other communities where the board so feels, they close the public hearing, they will accept the changes to the, decisions that were discussed tonight and give authority to, Paul to make those changes. And then but however, they will vote on the night and then move forward. So I would prefer to close the hearing tonight. I think we don't have any more issues. And I think the conditions and the decision itself is well written and it's acceptable to us.
So any of the other board members, Mark, John, do you have any burning desire to keep open the hearing for some reason?
I have no reason. I'd anticipated, unless we had issues come up or new information, closing it. And I would like to review, in a little more detail, the actual thing, but I read it before coming in here, so there's nothing significant, but there, just to make sure all the details are as we see fit. But I'm prepared to close it. Mark?
Agreed.
Okay, I'll make that motion then. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing for the application for a comprehensive permit by, I gotta grab the applicant's name. I got too many windows open, I apologize. Let me restart that.
Indian
Indian
Ridge.
Ridge Realty Trust, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, for the Indian Ridge Realty Trust for the project known as Jeffrey Park.
Second.
Okay, 1 second, further discussion. All those in favor of closing the hearing signify by saying aye. John, aye. Jay,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Okay, the hearing's closed. Again, thank you, Mr. Harrison, for all your work and patience. Paul, thank you for all your work to get this, and to all those that have participated and helped guide us to this point. I really appreciate it, because I think there was an awful lot of thoughtful and valuable input to the people that have been with us throughout this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. And the abutters, I do like to say that it was a very cordial and a very pleasant experience working with you all. I wish they all could be like this, but we know they can't, but thank you.
This is the beginning of working with them, Dean, if this isn't the end.
Well, this stage of the game, let's say it that way.
Okay, I hope, yeah, I mean,
So, Mr. Chairman, now you either need to decide whether you're going to vote on the decision as discussed tonight, or if you want to have time to read it over and propose any other potential conditions or changes to the decision, you would need to schedule a date for a deliberative session. So it's got to be one or the other.
I mean, I'm not that bothered by the decision based on the discussion, the dialogue, the markup, the concerns, the addressing. As far as I'm concerned, I would like to have the ability to, consent. Maybe it's electronic, maybe it's just approval, through Karen, the final document. But I don't see any real burning desire to have a meeting.
Yeah, no, Jay, I agree. I was watching, I was flipping back and forth between screens, but I was watching Paul do his final edits live. So
Scary thought.
I think,
When we could hear him.
yeah.
Could see it though.
I was struggling a little.
We saw all the keystrokes. We just couldn't hear the dialogue about them. But I mean, if those were incorporated into a clean version and an execution, ready version, I'd be fine approving that through, a reply to Karen with relative to consistency. So I don't, like I said, I don't think we need another hearing.
All right, so then if that's the case, then you would be prepared to vote on it tonight, subject to the changes that were discussed at the hearing tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I would think we would make a motion.
Just review the decision to make sure that
Make a motion
I didn't mess up too badly in implementing those changes.
Correct. So, the motion would be approve, deny, or approve with conditions. And my guess is with a comp permit, we approve with conditions as set forth in the decision as drafted, subject to our confirmation, right?
Yep, that would be fine.
Okay. I mean, I'd rather do that than kick the can along. I think with these projects, they're never going to be perfect, but I do believe that there's been so much public input that, we have a pretty well-defined project with I think, hopefully the applicant is the developer and not, just gonna flip this thing, but, with a draft that reaches a lot of the concern areas raised and kind of the best we can do as a zoning board in these situations. So I feel very confident with the dialogue, the deliberation, the thoughtfulness of the approach on all sides. And I don't need to see it anymore. I'd be willing to act on this tonight.
I
Yep.
have no objection. I've read through it and watched as well as you. So
I'll make a motion then, if that's the case. So I'll make a motion that we approve the application for a grant of special permit by Indian Ridge Realty Trust.
Comprehensive permit.
Sorry, a comprehensive permit. What did I say?
You said special permit.
Oh, comprehensive permit
It is
by the applicant, Indian Ridge Realty Trust, for the property and project located or named as Jeffrey Park, with conditions as set forth in the draft decision edited by our town council this evening, and subject to our confirming that the draft decision reflects the deliberations of January 20th, 2021, and all the prior dates of deliberation, prior thereto.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. John, aye. Jay,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
thank you. And again, thanks to all of you for all of the work and input to this.
And thanks, Paul. Special thanks to you, Paul, for hanging in there and doing this one. I know this is our, I think, second or third.
The second one.
Yeah, second. Your counsel is super appreciative, or I appreciate it. I think I'm probably speaking for the board. You are a good ally in keeping us, between the rails. So I appreciate that. And then similarly, I don't usually say this, but Dean, I think, did a really nice job as an applicant's counsel. I know we didn't mean the applicant, and some come more prepared and less than others, but you did come prepared each time. You addressed, everything we asked of you with memos or information I think was both relevant and helpful. So
Thank
I know
you.
as a board, I appreciate that, and I'm not going to speak for the butters because not my job, but I do feel like you gave them between Paul and Dean and Karen's input and hopefully our direction, their chance to be heard in a public process that is never perfect, but as good as it could have been. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And John, thanks for keeping us organized. And Mark, thanks for the input.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jay, for all that.
Yes, thank you, Jay.
And Paul, in the no good deed goes unpunished, we requested you back after the last time, and now you've set yourself up for the next one too. So,
I look forward to it. Thank you.
No, I echo Jay's comments on the professionalism that everybody involved has demonstrated. Makes our job a lot easier. So
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate the public input. It was great this round compared to the last one.
yes.
Yes.
That is true. And I guess to this group, at least with not Dean, but the core group over here, it's one of those until we meet again, because there's going to be another one soon.
Is there any more land available?
We're at 4.9% now, so until it's 10%,
Till it's 10.
that opportunity will come back. So,
Yeah.
Karen, I
Did you
forwarded
vote? I
the
left the
decision to
room.
you.
Yeah, we voted.
we're
Yes.
not
Okay.
telling you,
Okay.
you'll have to wait and see in the paper.
Well, Liz, you can come back in now.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think the other point is that may conclude our business for this evening. Is any,
Yeah, I just ask you to decide on a February date.
oh, thank you, Karen.
So Paul, the previous project,
Oh,
Village
boy.
on Green, is actually coming to the board. They submitted their final plans and they're under review currently. So I think the new building commissioner would like to introduce himself and bring that project to you in terms of the final plan submittal.
Speaking of that, Karen, now we have a new building commissioner and none of us are in the office. If he would like to join us at one of our meetings, I'd love to.
Yep.
meet
I
him and
believe,
say
yeah,
hello.
so if you settle on a February date, I think Mark will be there with me to sort of walk through that final set of plans for Village on the Green.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to.
The 17th work for everybody?
I think so.
Yes.
That's been
Yeah.
the best part about all this. Sure, every day works. Yeah, I'm gonna be here. Yeah, it works for me. If that works for you, Karen.
We have a use variance application pending for a very large solar project in a residential zoning district.
Ouch. We're gonna be the solar capital of Metro West before we know it. Okay. Any other business that folks have?
I don't.
In that case, we would be happy.
Before
to
9
have-
o'clock. It's before 9 o'clock, so that's kind of a win. So I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Motion
Take
to
it away,
adjourn.
Liz.
Been,
Wait, no, you have a motion to adjourn, right?
A motion to adjourn. I've been working way too much. I apologize.
Okay, I'll second it.
Continue the public
Moved and
hearing.
seconded.
Adjourn. I'm sorry.
Thank you. All those in favor, John, aye. Jay,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.